I'm in this book, Earth. It's a giant textbook. And there's a lot of clues in here about how geologists think and why they think the way they do. And I noticed on page 4 some historical notes about geology. This book was written in 2005. Well, the original was 1996, but this updated version is 2005. And it says here, certainly the most influential Greek philosopher was Aristotle. Unfortunately, Aristotle's explanations about the natural world were not based on keen observations and experiments. Instead, they were arbitrary pronouncements. He believed that rocks were created under the influence of the stars, and that earthquakes occurred when air crowded into the ground, was heated by central fires, and escaped explosively. When confronted with a fossil fish, he explained that a great many fishes live in the earth motionless and are found when excavations are made. And I don't know what they meant by he believed that rocks were created under the influence of the stars. I have to look into that a little bit more. That threw me off because I was like, shit, did he say it too? But I don't know. Although Aristotle's explanations may have been adequate for his day, they unfortunately continued to be expounded for many centuries, thus thwarting the acceptance of more up-to-date accounts. Frank D. Adams states in The Birth and Development of the Geological Sciences, written in 1938, that throughout the Middle Ages, Aristotle was regarded as the head and chief of all philosophers, one whose opinion on any subject was authoritative and final. So basically, you have geology as told by a single individual, and everybody just, followed them when it came to the sciences, at least. For fucking centuries. To have that kind of power must have been unbelievable. I mean, of course, he wasn't alive during it, but... And then we have the second round of theorizing called Catastrophism. In the mid 1600s, James Ussher, Ussher, Anglican Archbishop of Armagh, Primate of all Ireland, published a major work that had immediate and profound influences. A respected scholar of the Bible, Ussher constructed a chronology of human and earth history, in which he determined that Earth was only a few thousand years old, having been created in 4004 BC. Ussher's treatise earned widespread acceptance among Europe's scientific and religious leaders, and his chronology was soon printed in the margins of the Bible itself. And then it says here, during the 17th and 18th centuries, the doctrine of catastrophism strongly influenced people's thinking about Earth. Briefly stated, catastrophists believed that Earth's landscapes had been shaped primarily by great catastrophes. So really violent events happened really quickly, shaped what you see on the surface of the Earth. Features such as mountains and canyons, which today we know take great periods of time to form, were explained as having been produced by sudden and often worldwide disasters produced by unknowable causes that no longer operate. This philosophy was an attempt to fit the rates of Earth processes to the then current ideas on the age of the Earth. So what you have here is culture accepted a worldview, and then they made observations, and then they made those observations conform to the worldview. We all know that's backwards. If you want to do science, if you want to do inquiry of the natural world, you make the observations, and then you form the worldview. As we'll see here, it continues. The relationship between catastrophism and the age of the Earth has been summarized as follows. That the Earth had been through tremendous adventures and had seen mighty changes during its obscure past was plainly evident to every inquiring eye. But to concentrate these changes to a few brief millenniums required a tailor-made philosophy, a philosophy whose basis was sudden and violent change. And then we have the next step. So it went from Aristotle, one man for hundreds of centuries, saying this is how everything went down, to catastrophism, and everything just changed very rapidly within a few millennium. Now we have the third step is the birth of modern geology. It says here, modern geology began in the late 1700s when James Hutton, a Scottish physician and gentleman farmer, published his theory of the earth. In his work, Hutton put forth a fundamental principle that is a pillar of geology today, uniformitarianism. It simply states that the physical, chemical, and biological laws that operate today have also operated in the geologic past. And it says here also, unlike his predecessors, Hutton carefully cited verifiable observations to support his ideas. So, if you couldn't observe it, then chances are it never happened. Unlike the catastrophism, where you can say, well, we can infer that this happened, but we've never seen it happen before. So, yeah, it's completely different. Either you observe what you're talking about and to try to explain it, or you can just make stuff up and say, well, this had to have happened because of this. And there's no observation of anything remotely similar happening. And the real problem with this catastrophism, what that did was short things up, like, oh, well, it happened in a few thousand years. Uniformitarianism, what that did is stretch things out to incredible amounts of time, and it made things possible to see, that's happened, and we can explain things when you stretch time out. Unfortunately, uniformitarianism is also short-sighted in the fact that Hutton also says, what more can we require? Nothing but time. So essentially, uniformitarianism takes everything you see as it is and then stretches it back out all the way to the very beginning. So Earth not only was formed and shaped by slow changes, but the Earth really didn't change that much itself. So it's always been solid and liquid material, which then was the basis for things called the rock cycle, where rocks constantly change on the surface and morph, and mountains grow and they fall, mountains grow again and they fall again. And that's not how things actually work, because they didn't have a very important part of Earth's history there. Earth was actually much larger, much more gaseous, much hotter, and the Earth is the core of one of those objects that differentiated itself and cooled and collapsed and died, forming everything you see. So uniformitarianism is right in the fact that they have it stretched out over very, very, very long time scales, but the Earth wasn't always like this. So the main statement that uniformitarianism says is the present is the key to the past is misguided. It actually should be the present is not the past. What we know as Earth now wasn't always like this. Not in the terms of, oh, well, maybe a mountain was over there and it's over there now. It was straight up, there were no mountains. There was no solid material, and there weren't even the chemicals that comprised the mountains to begin with. They were much more diffuse. They were in a very thick atmosphere, and it was incredibly hot. There was no surface to even speak of, or even the core of the Earth didn't even exist. It was still undifferentiated. It was a hot ball of plasma in its very early life. Of course, that would have been far, far, far ahead of James Hutton, because, well, he was working on very little information. So, to recap this, you have Aristotle, the authoritarian on the matter, and his word is the last word. You have mid-1600s catastrophism. So basically it was Bible related. It was an attempt to fit the rates of the earth processes to the then current ideas in the age of the earth via the Bible and culture. And then you have uniformitarianism, which says the present is key to the past, and that nothing else is required but time. But no, that's not it at all. Earth's past history is much more incredible than what geologists realize in modern times. And then you have what I would like to call evolutionism, to view Earth as an evolutionary construct. It evolved to its state. And evolution meaning very, very, very long time scales, as well as very, 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 very big changes. So you have huge changes and huge time scales combined, not just huge time scales, which is what Uniformitarianism offers. And of course, something else really stuck out to me. I don't like talking about it anymore because I've learned not to go here, but I have to say it. But Electric Universe, they adopt the catastrophism approach, but it's not Bible centered. They center it on some type of mythology related stuff, and they force everything to fit inside of some couple millennia of time where everything just happened because of these short catastrophic events. And it parallels the same catastrophism in the mid 1600s. So to think that, people are following that and not really picking up a geology book and trying to decipher how this stuff formed, I don't think that's a good approach at all. But people are doing that. So be careful of Electric Universe ideas, because they're not well thought out, and they're not looking at history and studying how we got to where we are and understanding the Earth and understanding the stars. All right, y'all. Sums it up. Y'all take it easy.